So as I said before, good morning. Welcome to those of you who are joining us. It is January 6th. It is early in the new year. Happy New Year to all of you. This is our first webinar of the year. My name is Chris McNulty. I am the Chief Technology Officer here at Synozur, and I'll be introducing our guests here momentarily. Just a little word about Synozur. Synozur is a management consulting firm. We are a group of about 20 or so, mostly ex-Microsoft and ex-Accenture. We focus on business transformation. And our team has experience working in organizations large and small all over the world. And so we have brought together not just a stellar team of folks throughout Synozur and to join you today, but we've also encapsulated our approach, our AI-led way of driving digital transformation. Our management system, the company operating system that we're going to explain today, is part of that. But we really focus on a tailored, empathetic approach to the changes and opportunities that we think are possible for just about any business. A quick word about just the housekeeping for today. So today's webinar is being recorded. It will be available on demand over the next 24 hours. I need to typically see that we've done a little cleanup on the video, but that will come to you via email since you've registered. It'll also be hosted on our website. Today's webinar is hosted on Teams webinar. That means that if you have a question that you would like to raise, you can use the Q&A feature, the little question mark icon that shows the top of your screen to ask a question, and we'll be monitoring the chat throughout. We'll also take moments throughout for our guests to be able to discuss what they're hearing and being able to raise answers to any questions you may have as you go. So without further ado, I'm going to take a minute to introduce our guests today, Michelle and Matt. Michelle and Matt, can you take a minute to introduce yourself to the audience? Michelle.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Michelle Caldwell, CEO and founder of Synozur. I've spent over 25 years of my career working in transformation and experience, employee experience specifically centered programs. And I've spent the latter part of the last few years founding Synozur, which is an AI foundational firm, and I've spent a lot of time in the Microsoft ecosystem.
Thanks,
Matt.
Matt?
Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you're at. I'm Matt Shaffer, coming at you from Colorado. And for the last 20 years or so, I've been in the Microsoft partner ecosystem, specifically in software development and building very large portals inside organizations. So I ran a company doing that and also had a venture into commercial real estate world as well. So I'm happy to join you today.
Well, Matt, Michelle, thanks for being here with us and with the audience. Today's agenda, very simply, we're going to spend a few minutes explaining the business case for what strategy is, why it's hard for many organizations. Next, we'll turn our attention to the company operating system itself and the importance of strategy at being able to shape and drive that intentional focus on priorities that's essential to unlocking revenue growth. Next, we'll talk about how do you get started with a company operating system, and we will wrap that up by something we're very proud to be able to share publicly, which is Vega, which is our new platform which was constructed in part to replace Microsoft Viva Goals, and largely to be able to use AI to encapsulate the best of our expertise for how organizations can shape their company OS and being able to have a technical system to help implement that, followed by a wrap-up. So as we get underway here, I wanted to just start by explaining a little bit about the business case for why all of this matters. A recent survey, going back to 2023, Vistage is an association of organizational CEOs. And based on this, it's surprising that in today's world, the resources and all of these struggles just seem to persist. According to a recent McKinsey research, only 7% of their CEOs are building effective leadership. What this shows is that regardless of what you think of the economic output, many organizations are not putting their resources where their priorities are. They're not measuring progress against their goals. And fewer than 1 in 6 organizations have a framework for making sure that activities and resources, goals, and strategies are all interconnected. Given this, sometimes it's astonishing to me that any organizations manage to make any money whatsoever. And so I think this relatively low starting place is something that gives me a lot of encouragement about the opportunities that we can bring to organizations like those of you here with us on the call today. So last year we ran a survey. We asked, amongst those questions, what is business strategy? And the options there were long-term action plans, major company initiatives, the choices you make to win, and expressing your mission statement through actions. Take a moment, think in your head which one you think the answer is. And so only 43% of our survey respondents could identify what business strategy is correctly. This is hard for many organizations. Strategy is a word that gets thrown around a lot, and Matt's going to talk about that in a few minutes. But I thought we could just take a minute to talk about, the opportunities that are there for business here in 2026 and why strategy matters more than ever. Michelle, I'd love to start with your perspective on that.
Well, I mean, a lot of what I've observed, and even in some of the prior organizations where I was a leader, um, strategy was often treated as an annual event. Like annual planning was often confused with having a strategy or intermingling the terms and calling it strategic planning because I don't know what other kind of planning you have, but um, really not making it clear throughout the organization what are the kind of the strategic choices the business was making in order to win in their market, and then tying that down all the way down into the projects and activities that employees were a part of, so that they understood how their effort and their day-to-day work made impact in the business directly. So I think that's a pretty common situation that's out there. I think, Matt, you've probably observed something very similar in your career, that planning is often confused with strategy.
Yes, planning is a collection of actions and things we will do. Strategy is a collection of choices about how to position, right, in the marketplace, or even if you're a team leader, as say part of a product, you're a product manager, how will we position features in our product in order to get customers to choose our product over the next one, right? Specifically for 2026, AI is disrupting right now. And as we're starting that curve, I think we're all figuring out how is it going to disrupt, especially at the mid-size and down to small business level, right? And when we think at a team level about how will AI help us, I think the way we should be thinking about that strategically is how will we leverage this new capability of AI to position our team, our product, our company in a way so that customers will choose us, right? It's not putting AI as the end all be all, but it's having an intentional strategy for our team or our company.
Right.
And how do we use AI as a tool to help position in that choice we're making?
So
And I think I'll just build one more comment, Chris, on what Matt was saying. I was hoping he would tee this up. A lot of organizations are betting big on AI. One of the things I think, Matt, you hit on the head really clearly, and we've seen in our other research in terms of AI and where organizations are from a maturity perspective, is they're betting big on like my personal everyday productivity, like a lot of investments going into like how to use tools better to make a small task more simple, versus making the bigger bets on how do we leverage AI to bring something transformative to our customer base, right? Or outpace something transformative with our competition, or hit a new market in a way we haven't been able to before. And that's where all the studies in AI, well, not all of them, but many of them are saying the things where you're looking at customer facing transformation, product facing transformation, are the things that are going to have the bigger payoff versus hey, I've learned how to prompt better, so that's somehow strategically more important for my business to lead in its industry. I'm not saying that you don't need these skills in terms of personal productivity, in terms of AI. However, a lot of investments going into the personal side of this, and not as many organizations are looking at it strategically and how AI may even help them um, power their strategy faster, differently, more dynamically. And that's going to be, I think, the next couple of years, the gap's going to get larger, and we're going to see that even more clearly as the organizations
Yep.
that are making those strategic choices powered by AI are going to be the disruptors and the champions in their industries.
Another lens to think strategically that complements what you just said, the personal use of AI versus organizational, is a lot of the personal use is for efficiencies, right? And efficiency might maybe only be one small part of a team or a company's strategy, right? So again, having a strategy, understanding what strategy is, thinking strategically, and then how can we use this new capability to support that strategy will be a game changer organizationally and move the needle a little farther than only at the personal level of efficiency.
So let me just ask one
If we can
last
save some money
question.
operationally, we can better fund the strategic choices.
So I'd like to ask one last question as we wrap up this section. Clearly that many organizations are disconnected. We're going to talk a little more about the importance of strategy, but goals and resources and activities are disconnected and they don't have a framework. Why does this persist?
I think it's a lack of awareness or understanding on business leaders that I've seen, right? You get overcome by the needful in the day to day, the week to week, and the month to month. So leaders in teams and leaders in businesses just have to be intentional to take a step back, carve out some time to work on the business instead of working in the business. It's intentionality.
So there's a question in chat. I'm going to acknowledge it right now. Pete's asking if we have plans to align our platform with strategic approaches like EOS traction. I think what you're going to see is here in a minute is what our approach is. So EOS is one framework for how organizations can, especially starting organizations that are small and growing. EOS traction is really well tuned to that. Our experience is typically in organizations that are a little bit bigger and more established, mid-market to enterprise, which is where the company operating system comes in. And so I think that's a great opportunity. Thank you, Pete, for me to bring Matt on to focus a little bit on the company operating system itself. Matt, so let's start by having you explain a little bit about what is it?
You bet. Company operating system, business operating system, somewhat of a generic term out there in the market. It just is a name for a intentional framework of how to manage your business, right? EOS is one example of a company operating system or a business operating system that's out there, and it's a good one. It's a good place to start. I personally used it to run a 700-person organization and kind of found the edges and the shallowness of where it stops. So that put us to thinking about how can we be a little more thorough with a solution. But it's really about intentionality. Clarity, focus, right, is everything. Identifying where are we, where do we want to go to get everybody aligned behind it. Maintain that focus on a regular basis throughout the year with a focused rhythm. And it's not just identifying goals at the beginning of the year. That's just goal setting or maybe even planning. An operating system, just like for a computer, is to keep everything intentionally in the right place, moving along in its swim lane and maintaining a awareness of are things working the way we set out to have them work. So it aligns people, resources, and plans against a strategy that you set. So what are the benefits? Again, clarity and focus is what that intentionality will get you. You'll see in your measures and your metrics either an increase in performance, right, in what those measures are, or you will identify what's not working and be able to pivot on it quickly. Accountability, honesty, And the agility is that pivoting on, if something's not working, let's get on it pretty quick about why. I want to really double click on the honest measurement and decisions, because when you document where we want to go this year, what are our measures, and have a scorecard of, weekly or monthly things we're looking at to say, does it work? You can't feel like things are working well. The data will tell the truth. And just like a budget in a household or relationship, you can always make the budget the bad guy, right? That budget says we can't go to Hawaii this spring for the second time, right? And the data will tell you, is what we're doing working, and are we getting towards where we want to go? So that's the clarity you get through focus and intentionality that will force you to be honest about the real data. So when to have a reset and use a company OS, these are some of the signals you see here. One of my favorite that kind of goes with the last slide is BOPSAT. Bunch of people sitting around talking, right? That is not fueled usually by data or by truth. So if you don't have goals identified in your team or your organization, you don't have an intentional strategy documented, you don't have your values documented, and if you do have those goals and those values, if they're not being lived out, then it's time to get intentional about having and implementing a company OS.
Matt, I'm just going to throw in an extra comment here. These signals, I see this evidenced a lot when organizations are saying yes to too many things. They choose it all, right? We're going to go in all directions. All good ideas sound great. Let's do it all. And the challenge with that is you can't do it all well. And you even led us through an exercise last year in our own organization where we had to make some choices, because just because you could do it all doesn't mean you should. And I know Chris has seen this on some of the boards that he serves on, where they're like, well, let's support mid-market and, new parts of the world and do all these things. Let's choose everything. And that's not a choice. It's not a strategy to choose everything.
Right. And when everything's a priority, nothing is a priority. And that's something great to paint on the wall of wherever you meet weekly, right? So creating a strategy and creating a plan is as much about what do we say no to and what we are not, as much as it is about what we say yes to.
Right. And, in my experience, having that systemic framework, few organizations intentionally say, let's try to do every single thing everywhere all at once. But when those different parts of a company don't have visibility into what each other are doing, you do see places where this division is taking a broad market approach and that division is taking a very sector-based approach, which leads not just to misaligned resources, but market confusion about what you're just looking to do across the board. So we're not saying a company operating system alone can solve for this, but it's definitely a big boost, I think, in that direction. So Matt, why don't you take us through exactly what goes into the company OS?
You bet. So there's really 4 components. The first is business foundations. You need to set your mission, your vision, your values, right? And your purpose. The purpose is why we exist. Mission is what do we do. Values are kind of obvious, but everything should be based on your values, and your values should guide and help you figure out what to say no to in your team or your business. And then you move on to strategy, where strategy is an intentional set of choices that position the team or company so they win. You have to get everybody to understand what that is, and you have to set what that strategy is. And once you've got the strategy, what are the choices we're going to make? Turn that into an annual plan. You have your measures inside of there. You have your priorities for the year, is also called objectives. And then throughout the year, you have a focus rhythm, which has quarterly activities of identifying what's important, and all the way down to weekly meetings with a very intentional agenda to, again, back to the first slide in this section, to maintain focus on that clarity you create in the first 3 steps. So first part, business foundations. Talked a little bit about that. Core values are at the center of that. We mentioned purpose, vision, mission, and your targets. What you really want to start with is a long-range target and a medium-range target. This is above and more foundational than your annual plan. It might look like a 10-year target, it might look 5 years. Sometimes a 5-year and a 3-year is an appropriate place for an organization to go. It might depend on where that team or organization is in their maturity or their age simply, right? If it's a startup, you might want to look at a 5-year goal. If it's a more tenured company that's more established, it might look a little farther out. But setting these foundations, these will rarely ever change. That's why they're called foundations, right? These are the bedrock of what you do, why you do, and how you do in your team or your business.
Yeah, and Matt, I'll just add to kind of bring this home a little bit for the audience. One of the questions I often hear you ask founders and leaders and stuff when we're getting started on this journey is, okay, are you trying to prepare the company for purchase or acquisition? Are you trying to divest? Are you trying to grow? Like some of those are those kind of immutable targets, if you will, right? Because the choices you would make in your strategy, if you're trying to be, let's say, bought by Microsoft in the next 5 years, the choices you make are very different than if it's we're going to break into the European market and grow through acquisition of other organizations like ourselves, or we're going to do organic growth. Like
Right.
those targets really determine the choices the organization's going to make to reach those. So I just wanted to like give an example because it's things like that and I've seen the light bulbs go off, right? Where I just go, oh, right. Yeah. So I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to do this. So that means the choices we're going to make are going to look kind of different.
Exactly right. And that's why you start with the end in mind, right? Which are those 10-year or 5-year targets as long term. So how do we position, right? Because if you want to build a company that in 5 years you want to sell the PE and pass it on to your kids, PE being private equity, you're going to do different things than if you want to outright sell it, right? Or if you want to create an enduring business, you're going to pass down through the family. It's going to be a family business. So you start with that end in mind and you work back. And, a great guiding principle is whether you want to sell a company or not, always build it like you're going to sell it, because that will help you make the right decisions to having the company be valuable, even if you're going to hold on to it for 4 generations.
So up next is strategy, and this is one, Matt, you've taught me a lot about over the years. So what strategy is and what it's not. So
strategy is not these things on the top row. Right? And on the second row are some things, some examples and things we hear people say when they think that strategy is goals, right? Our strategy is to grow. Well, growing is not a strategy. Goals and growth is an outcome of what a good strategy will get you. Your vision and mission statements, they are certainly required, right? It's absolutely necessary. But to say that we want to be somewhere in the marketplace, we want to be number one. That's half people's vision statements, right? Be the best at whatever our industry is. That's great. That's a great aspirational vision to have. Could be better, by the way. But a vision in itself or a what we do in a mission is not a strategy. Remember, strategy is choices. So when it comes to operational effectiveness, being as efficient as possible isn't a strategy within itself. Now, if you go back and look at some of the mainline thinking and some of the greats and what they talk about strategy, you either have a differentiation strategy in your go-to-market, or you have a cost strategy, right? And operational effectiveness or operational efficiency to drive costs down could be a core part of a cost strategy, cost differentiation strategy to be the cheapest out there. But that's not a strategy within itself. And obviously tactics or activities, let's say plans, are not a strategy within themselves either. So if you're going to pour $2 million into marketing this year in order to get more market share, that is a tactic. That's not a strategy, and that's not even an end goal. So how will pouring $2 million of marketing into what we're doing as part of our plan support our strategic choice of how we're going to position to win in the marketplace?
One thing we're going to bring up here, it's an excerpt from a podcast that we did with John Hillen last year. Hopefully this audio is going to play.
Dr. Hillen is exactly right, which brings up a lens to look through. Strategy versus planning. Strategy is all out of your control, the choices that are made, right? Because you're trying to influence your consumers or your prospects or your customers to make a choice to choose you. Planning, you have all control of. Let's build a new manufacturing plant, right? Let's spend more money on marketing this year. Let's put these features into our product. That's entirely in our control. And that should support the strategic choice. And planning feels comfortable because you're in control. With a strategy, you get to control the choices, but are those choices, is the customer choosing you, is out of your control. So that's where strategy and planning are going to feel very different at this point. So let's talk about an annual plan. Annual plan consists of objectives, targets, and rocks. Rocks is a term used in the EOS system that many people who read the traction book have seen. So annual objectives could be synonymous with priorities. What is important this year? And it can't be more than 5 things, right? On the very outside, it should be about 3, sometimes 2. What is the most important thing for us to achieve and accomplish this year? What's our objective? What's our priority? You need to make those really clear. And the targets are what we want to achieve that could be measured, right? Metrics might be revenue, or measures might be revenue, it could be dollars. It could be profit, it could be number of employees, number of new clients, number of new geographies we're in, and how are we going to measure that? And what's the target we want to get to within those measures? And then quarterly, you're going to set what are the big rocks. These might look like projects or initiatives or sets of those things that we need to do in order to achieve those targets and those annual objectives. So how we help our customers find those things and determine those things is through workshops where we define them. So through design thinking, getting the right people, getting the right team together, doing some mind-opening exercise, some what if and how could we, to get people to think outside of their normal thinking lanes that they're in this season. So that's annual plan. Next is your focused rhythm. You'll have a scorecard. Love the old saying of what gets measured gets managed. And if you can't measure it, it doesn't exist. Put on your scorecard, what are the things that we need to do on a weekly or monthly basis that we do that will drive the performance and the targets we need, right? A scorecard is a more granular level of kind of activities and what are the activities showing. For instance, web traffic, number of clicks. It might look like revenue in a region, a little more granular than your annual targets, but very important to look at those on a weekly basis. Are we doing the right things and are they doing what we expect them to do? Annual plan, you're going to do that once a year. Quarterly planning, that happens at the end of each quarter to do a retrospective on last quarter, forward looking to this quarter, and weekly, a very intentional meeting agenda to look at our rocks, look at our scorecard, and to keep top of mind accountability of our people getting done what they said they would get done for the quarter and on the to-do list.
So,
Yeah, and I think, Matt, one of the things that I've observed that's interesting to me in terms of that rhythm is if the rock's on target, do we need to talk about it? Right? And when you've got senior leaders in the room, they only mostly care, my observation has been, if something's off track and you need their help in order to get it back on track, that's what they want to spend time talking about. They don't need to talk ad nauseum about everything that's green and great, and that's not a good use of senior leadership time.
That's right. That weekly meeting, it should not be, please don't let it be the, hey, here's what I'm doing to justify, my position. Hey, look what I'm accomplishing. That's not what it's about. It's not about you. This isn't your one-on-one to talk about your effectiveness as an individual. This is the plan working, and is the plan working effectively with the strategy? And, I'll give away for free here the real key and the real differentiator. I'll give it a weight of 70 to 80% of having a company operating system actually provide value and drive business performance is that weekly meeting. You take that weekly meeting out, I give you 30% chance that you're going to move the needle, right? You do that weekly meeting with an intentional agenda. I've seen it time after time with team after team and business after business. That is the glue and the accelerant that makes it all happen.
Yeah. And what I've observed is if you have what do I call it, a referee, a coach, someone to sit by, I've seen you do this a lot, Matt, over the last few years, it just sits kind of and listens and can guide to get that behavior pattern set. It can happen very quickly if you have someone listening in that understands what good sounds like and looks like and can help coach the team to what good is. Yeah, I've seen that transformation happen pretty rapidly once it gets in motion, if a good coach is sitting on the sidelines for a little bit of time to help the team understand how to operate it properly.
Exactly. And the coach is there as a unbiased third party that isn't in the regular mindset of the team, right? You've got a broader vision, doesn't have that myopic focus on this is the way we've always done it. And especially the weekly meeting and this entire company OS, it's simple. It's all about intentionality. It's not that it's so complex and you got to fill in all these boxes and do all of this work to fit things together perfectly and identify, but it's really simple. It's all about the intentionality and the simplicity. It's not complex and it's not hard to do.
So I'm wondering, Matt and Michelle, if you could just take the audience through an example of what this looks like on the ground. Now, this is an example of an organization that Synozur helped establish their own company operating system.
Michelle, you want to start that one?
That's where it's like, what do you want to start? Sure, I'm happy to start. This is a blinded case study of one of our most beloved customers. Came to us through some friendly relationships, and these wonderful founders had 20 some years of successful business building at their organization, and I think kind of were feeling a little bit of the growth ceiling moment, and kind of wanted some support. And we went in, and ahead of this did a kind of a business assessment, top to bottom, left to right on the organization to identify their greatest opportunities to kind of break through the ceiling that they were currently at the time a few years ago. And one of the first things that we uncovered was that they could really benefit from a reset on their company operating system. And Matt and I worked very closely together on that one. And while we took their entire leadership team through that kind of workshop approach. And for me, Matt, I don't know about for you, but when they told us about what their kind of their future vision, right, where they wanted to go, I had goosebumps when they told us kind of what their bigger plans were as founders, and then just kind of watching how things like this have enabled them to achieve some of those goals, some of those aspirations as leaders, and really watching the transformation happen top to bottom in that organization has been really inspiring. And it wasn't like it was a really long, drawn out or very large project with us to support them through that. Matt, what were some of your observations in terms of key moments on this one?
I think really big picture with this organization, again, to reiterate, they had a great business going. Business was going well, right? They were well positioned in the marketplace. They had made many great strategic choices that were paying off for them. But they had kind of hit a ceiling of founder dependency, right? And they felt that, and they knew there was a glass ceiling there they needed to break through organizationally as far as scale. So when we came in, helped them work through that, help identify where they wanted to go and the strategy to get there, a big part of it was to expand the organization, right? To bring in a whole C-suite of leaders or EVP levels. And the company operating system we implemented with them really helped bring some intentionality, a lot of intentionality and structure to who's responsible for what in this new top level of the organization, and how do we work together and identify our priorities, create that clarity, and maintain focus on those priorities to get this team that's coming together for the first time to go where we want to go. And there was probably 60-70% of that top level leadership team were new to the company. They're working with the founders. So hats off to the founders of that company, the owners, to realize that they hit that ceiling and to reach out for help help us know what we don't know and help us with the intentionality to get there. And it has paid off for them greatly.
Yeah, and then watching this goes all the way down into even their departmental leaders who weren't senior leaders and hadn't, I think, been through, some of them not through something like this before, and watching even the department heads operate as a more strategic and aligned way has just been it's been really, I don't know, fulfilling to watch them grow and succeed. So this doesn't just happen at the EVP level. This can have a high impact even at departmental and team levels.
Yes.
Right. Matt, that's actually one of the first places I encountered the company operating system myself years ago when I was at Microsoft. When we brought you in to help implement a company OS for my department at Microsoft, which we found tremendously helpful, not just in achieving our goals, but at getting people onto the same page, connected, working as a team, understanding what one person's doing to contribute supports the higher level objectives that we have across the organization. So a lot of ways to get started, but Michelle, I'm wondering if you could take us through some of the things in your experience that are helpful for organizations who want to move forward and don't know how.
Sure. And we'll keep this pretty simple. Some of the things to get started to think through is who's on that team, who needs to be part of that conversation, planning, the workshopping, the discussion about the business foundations, and who needs to be part of those weekly rhythms, identifying who is a big part of the how to get started, and then figuring out what is the nomenclature in which you call things culturally. I know there's a question earlier about EOS as a framework. There's lots of frameworks out there. Many organizations, you may be a KPI or an OKR organization. You might be objectives, you might be targets, you might be goals. Determining what's the common language you're going to use to identify the things you're going to discuss and hold each other accountable to and align to is really important. It's one of the reasons that we love the COS framework, because it's very amenable and adaptable to different organizational cultures and using different types of language. And then, do we need a tune-up or a reset, or do we not have one at all? Like, are we starting from scratch? In the case study that we discussed a moment ago, it wasn't that they didn't have anything, but they didn't have this framework in place. So there was a lot of education foundationally that we needed to provide to the leadership team so that they could come up with what they call things, so that they could do the planning and the decision making and get their weekly rhythms in place. So understanding kind of where you're at and what the right next step looks like. And then a question we get a lot is not even can we start mid-year, but can we start whenever we discovered that we needed to do something different? And the good answer is yes. We absolutely can start. You don't have to wait till it's soon to be your new fiscal, whatever your fiscal cycle is, or your annual cycle. Matt can tell you that he's been able to go in and help organizations start this process regardless of where you are in your performance year.
Exactly. And yes to everything above. And man, that first bullet right there, what's so important is to educate people. The what is it? Why are we doing this, right? Because you are bringing change when you implement any management framework, and you need to get the buy-in of the team to show up and contribute. And the first piece of that is really getting them to understand, what is it? Oh, it's these things, right? And then why are we doing it? So rely on your framework of choice. Again, taxonomy is a big piece of framework, but your company size might depend on what framework you use, right? Do you have teams of teams? Do you have 5 levels between company top level leadership and where you are in the organization? You need to consider how to roll up what I'm doing at my team level to what the company strategy is. Taxonomy, again, super important. And to bring someone in that's a third party that's seen it done a lot, has facilitated a lot, is super helpful. And you're bringing that person in because they understand how to guide you through, or guide your team or your company through finding your team or your company's strategy. What's important to help your company plan. You're not bringing them in as a consultant because they know your industry and they're going to tell you what you should do, right? They're going to guide you to self-discover where you should go and how to get there. And of course, use the data.
I think also, Matt, I'd add, as a leader myself who's didn't lead this for my own organization, right? And I talk to other leaders often about the good reasons why this bullet matters. It's also, when you're leading the group or the discussion, you can also be participating and observing in a way in which you are like able to fully understand what's happening in the room. What are your peers or the other leaders in your organization? How are they participating? Like all those signals. It's really important for the leader that might be the key stakeholder in something like this to be able to participate fully in engaging in that discussion versus having to lead it and be the one in the front of the room. I think that's such a gift that if you're a leader that's going through this, thinking about this or considering it, don't take that away from yourself. We've got some new customers early this year that they're heeding that advice, and they're like, "You're right, Michelle. Like I want to be able to purchase. I've been leading these kind of things for years, and I just need someone else to come do it so I can participate. I can listen. I can engage fully." And I think there's such value in being able to fully participate and engage as a leader in that exercise and not have to lead it yourself.
Yeah, less than being totally in think mindset, right? And future looking instead of being worried about the immediate facilitation thing. Exactly.
Right.
Absolutely. Highly valuable.
So I'd like to kind of push this forward to talk a little bit about some of the ways organizations can actually implement this tactically and technically. Matt, one of the things that you've imprinted on me over the years is that the tool itself is not the company operating system, right? Like, and that cultural empathy is important to recognize that you can only bring people along on a journey so quickly. And, I know that you all have implemented some company OSs that start literally on paper, where people are putting pen to paper in a notebook to be able to track things. A couple of the tools and techniques that, people have used. It's important, though, to make sure that you are doing something, like whether it's pen and paper. Many organizations capture the elements of their company operating system, their plan and their week-to-week coverage inside of things like Word or inside Excel. Others can be a little bit more sophisticated. There's some fairly simple tooling that comes along with Microsoft's Power BI that lets you build out dashboards so you can put in the measures that you want to track across the organization and have periodic check-ins so everyone is literally looking at things that are on the same page. But one of the things I'm especially proud of that we're able to share today is what we've done introducing Vega. Vega is our platform that implements the company operating system. And it is designed from the get-go for organizations like ours that had been using historically Microsoft's Viva Goals to track OKRs. However, we've taken what Viva Goals was doing and we have wrapped that and embedded it in what we've come to determine are some of the leading practices for how organizations should look at their strategy and their management framework. Foremost in those is being able to embed AI foundationally in how you construct the company operating system, how you use it to help people with check-ins and being able to build summaries, throughout Vega, as you'll see here when I bring it up on screen in just a second, we very much take the idea of objectives, key results, and big rocks into the product. We've also added a module to help you orchestrate focus rhythm, making sure that whether it's weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, that you have a way of capturing that information and bringing it back into the company operating system. We know that the more data that you get together, since you can comb through it with AI, it's going to make all the rest of those experiences even richer. We're tied into M365. We brought in some of the best of breed approaches, being able to use Entra for single sign-on and running in SOC 2 data environments, as well as being able to preserve backwards compatibility with Viva Goals. So that said, let me call this up on screen here. Give me a moment to change my screen sharing. And as you'll see, hopefully folks can see it. Yes, if you've been trying to use Viva Goals, you now get brought to this page because Microsoft retired Viva Goals as of last week. So that said, let's start by looking at Vega. So if you come to the Vega site, you'll see a page that explains, some background about what it is, the company operating system, and so on and so forth. You can sign up for a free account right now. It's also where you can go to log in. And so you can construct your login using a standard email and password, or you can implement with Microsoft Single Sign-On, which is what I'm going to do here. And so I built Vega in many ways to help deal with the fact that Microsoft Viva Goals had gone away. So we're going to spend the next few minutes walking through some of the major components here on the left. But you'll see right now, we're starting inside of an organization that doesn't really have a company operating system up here in the left. So there's a couple of things that we can do. So for this, I am going to start by moving to a different company that I've constructed called Synozur Viva Goals. So if you have been a Viva Goals user and you saved your data off, you should be able to work pretty quickly. So in this case, I'm going to pick my file. And so this is the actual Viva Goals file that was exported from a system last year. When do you want your fiscal year to start? How do you want to deal with duplicates? Do you want to bring the whole check-in history? I'm not sure why you wouldn't, but say import from Viva Goals. And it combs through the data, and it will, as you'll see here in just a minute, it will bring that hierarchy of objectives and teams and key results and assignments into the platform. So we should see momentarily here, we built out 25 objectives, multiple key results, big rocks and check-ins, and we can get to those in the outcomes area. So this is, for those of you who are familiar with Viva Goals, this should look relatively familiar to you as well. So you can go here and take a look at the different measures and hierarchies. We're going to talk through those, but I could see, for instance, being able to see what the whole history is of something and what the whole check-in, the check-ins that we have, all of that comes over in terms of Viva Goals. So that's great if you were a Viva customer. What if you're not? That's where we've added some AI to help you with this. So for this case, we're going to start with a company called Cascadia Fitness. Now you can walk through the step-by-step measures of building out all of the key elements inside of this, but I'm going to show you a quick shortcut. So for this shortcut, I've already built a document for Cascadia Fitness that happens to be our operating plan. It's fairly lengthy. I asked AI to write it. This is a fictitious need. It's built a lot of stuff about, where the offices are, what are they going to look to do. The purpose of this is to be able to go to what's called Launchpad. So if I come to Launchpad, I can take a document that I've built that contains my annual plan in whatever format it's in. So let's go grab Cascadia Fitness, upload it. It's not liking it because I'm in it, because I'm showing it to you. So let me close it. It's come up and it's asking me, what year do I want it to map to? We're going to do it for 2026. Do you want to do
Chris is frozen.
Okay, am I back?
There, you're back.
Yeah, sorry, my internet dropped there for a second. So I was saying we've uploaded the document. We say we want to analyze this, and it's going to take a few seconds to walk through it. And it's combing through the document, and it's looking for the language that maps to what we understand and know to be best practices for a company operating system. We've already layered in our knowledge about what goes into things like a company operating system or a mission statement, or what are SMART goals. So that learning is already embedded in here, and we can see that from going through Launchpad, it's going to say, here's what I think your mission is: an inclusive, excellent fitness experience for community and holistic wellness. Here's the vision statement. There are 5 values that it's proposed: the importance of community and sustainability and innovation. And I could edit these if I wanted to. It's seeing some annual goals to increase membership 20%, open up a 4th club, enhance member experience. The point of this is if you already have that document, this can rapidly set you up inside Vega. Now, those documents don't write themselves. As Matt and Michelle were telling you, that really involves getting the right consensus and getting people together. But once you have that document, this makes it very easy for me to build out what are going to be all of these things: my objectives, my key results. You can see that it's decided all these things it's going to bring. Let's say create company OS. Which quarter do we want to map the big rocks to start in? We say Q1, and it's thinking about it. And voila. We now have a company operating system in Vega for this. And so now we've got some data that I can show you, that we've got our core foundations. Here's what our mission statement, our vision is. These are our values. These are the goals that we've stated. These are the strategies that we're going to use. These are the rocks that have been brought in. And then we can see down here, strategic alignment flow. One of the things that's, I think, distinctive in Vega is the importance of getting things connected. And so when I look at this, it's going to show me, where do I have goals that I don't have a strategy for? Or where do I have strategies that I don't have any objectives for how I'm going to go measure those success? And so this, if I'm just getting started, makes it very easy for me to go find, these are goals that you might want to map. These are strategies that I might want to map to a goal. Taking you through the whole system here. So the foundations module is where I can capture my organizational mission statement, my visions, my values, and then look to see how do my values align to the rest of the organization. And this is also where I can come in to structure additional goals. So if I have prior year goals that I want to carry forward, or if I wanted to add a new one here, I can. Strategy is the module where I can capture what are those core decisions that I'm making. And we brought them in generically. They're all at medium. I can come in and I can edit them and say, if this is going to be a high priority one, is it in progress? Who owns it? What's the timeline for it? Save those changes. And this is also the place where I can come in and say, if I'm going to do facility upgrades for member satisfaction, what goal is that for? Well, we want to enhance member experience. Getting all of these things connected, getting our goals tied to the right values and our objectives tied to the right strategies helps make sure that I've got a smooth flow and that different things that I'm working on all come together. Now, the outcomes module is where I can see those core objectives that I brought forward. Let's go to 2026. So you can see accelerate growth and footprint. And so here we can see we have a specific key result on signing up 1,200 new members. So if I look at this, you'll see it's blank. So let's presume I'm going to start. Let's do some check-ins here. So I'm going to check in on this one. And let's simulate what the first quarter is going to be. So let's say I took in 200 members in the first month. We are on track. Record that. And you can wire these up to automatically pull data from Excel, from Power BI, from Planner. We're adding more sources all the time. So we've got one check-in here. Let's do a second check-in for February. To my February check-in. And here we can say, maybe we're up to 250. School break signups help. This is one of the places where we've brought AI along, because I can ask for school break signups, and it's going to go through and it's going to say something that's going to be a little bit more impactful. Here's what we did. We've gotten to 21% of target. We're advancing this objective. We can say that I want to use this. You can also use AI to clarify things, add a context, make concise. So you can start to build these check-ins over time. And if March is slow, let's pretend March is slow. You can say that we have 251. No advertising, no growth. You put something short in like that, it usually does a pretty good job of being able to rewrite that for me into something that's going to sound like it's a little bit more business speak. We signed up 251 members. Constrained by this, we're going to close the gap. Here's some recommendations. We want to use this. We'll record the check-in. And you can see over time that, it's going to give me that live chart. Just as if you're used to seeing this from Viva Goals, you can see how you're doing over time, what the check-ins are, and are you hitting your trend lines? A lot of that contextual information is driven over here on the AI side. So this is a place where we upload our core documents, and on a tenant level, you can upload information that just helps describe your organization. Whether it is your messaging and positioning framework, additional goals documents, what your brand voice is, all of this provides additional coaching and guidance so that when I am looking to get an AI summary of information, that all flows in. Because we want to also be able to make sure that this information is most readily shared. We come back to the outcomes area. This is a place where I can say, I want to generate an automatic summary. Let's say I want to do quarter to date. I can give it custom instructions, and it's going to give me a summary that I can then take and inject into a communication, or I can put it onto a dashboard, or I can use it as the basis for a focus group meeting. So I'm, in the interest of time, because we're running out here, you can see it's gone and it's grabbed this for me. But I can then take that into my focus rhythm. Focus rhythm is where I can schedule what my meetings are and being able to bring in the key detail and measures into those meetings. We have lots of views on this. There's an executive view where I can go in and just see the top level things that need attention. If I'm not looking at the entirety of it, if I was just on a single team, I can just look to see these are just the goals that matter to a single team. And I can say, I just want to look at the ones that are at risk. This can also be the basis for a focus meeting. So that is a very quick tour of where we are with Viva Goals. So let me get these slides back up and running here. We are at time, so I apologize that we're running over. If folks need to drop, I understand that. Let me get back sharing where we were. Showtime. So while this is coming up and we're bringing up some closing resources, let's jump to the end because we are at the end, not making folks go through the rest of that. As we're calling that up, I also wanted to note something I'm going to add to the chat. As you're getting on your journey, we also have an online maturity model, which I will add here, which allows you to do self-service to go in and measure what your progress is on each of these areas. We have a number of resources that are all available on our website, and I'll put them up here, but Matt and Michelle, I'll give you a moment to add any closing thoughts that you might have about company operating systems, Vega, and the rest of what we have here today.
Well, I've got a great closing thought, and it's my shortest closing thought ever. Just do something. It's about the intentionality of implementing a framework. Again, to our point, Chris's point earlier, whether it's a napkin and a Sharpie, my goodness, write those things down. If you want to use Excel, do it. If Vega is the right fit for your organization and your team, do it. Just start somewhere. Having the intentionality of creating clarity and maintaining focus will bring immense value to your team or your business.
Fantastic. Michelle?
Oh, I think Matt hit it on the head. Get started, do something, but determine what the something needs to be. And if you just want a sounding board or having a conversation with some folks that have been there, done that, and supported others through it, do feel free. Please do reach out to us. We would love to help.
So it's not early in our journey with company operating systems, but it is early in our journey with Vega. We look forward to getting more feedback and would love to shape the product to be what you need. Reach out to us if you'd like to try it. So it's early in that journey, but it's very, very late in this webinar. I'd like to thank our guests today, Michelle and Matt, and also thank our audience for making time with us. Have a wonderful new year, and we hope to speak to you again soon. Thank you.